Across the UK, street musicians or buskers are playing music everywhere to entertain people, in the streets and on the underground, in both good or bad weather. They are making a living off their songs, and it is not an easy job to earn money from passers-by. This video is about some of the challenges that street musicians are facing in this country, particularly acquiring busking licences and the limited amount of private space in London and Birmingham. This year, a 2-minute clip on YouTube showed a Spanish guitarist ordering a disabled busker who was not from the Bath area to turn the sound down, before threatening to ram his microphone down his throat. Police are continuing to investigate this incident. Without permits, buskers performing will be moved by the police. 2 buskers had to stop playing music next to Camden Town Station as they didn't have a licence for busking from the council. These are the problems that street musicians are facing every day in order to make a living. London is one of the most multicultural cities in the world, with 8 million people. According to the Transport of London, there are 3.5 million tube passengers every year. This is a very huge market for street musicians to do their business on the underground. Since 2003, buskers are allowed to perform legally there. Each year, tube passengers are treated to more than 100,000 hours of live music performed by licensed buskers. However, nobody can play music on the tube until they get a busking licence. The London Underground established a busking scheme in 2003 to manage what they previously considered an illegal or unregulated activity.
The changes are important because you need to have consistent, good quality, it needs to be regulated. Other auditions, it's about performance, style, whether they're good enough. 3,000 applications a year. We've only got 39 busking pitches, and most of them are in the West End and close to places like the O2 and Hammersmith Apollo.
Before joining the underground busking scheme, he worked at a pub and then moved on to busking to make money and practice music. However, John had to spend too much time applying over and over again to get a licence.
I applied 3 years ago, and then I have auditions, but I didn't. London Underground, currently running school, didn't have auditions until 2010. I applied. 2013 I got my audition. The licence gives me security to be able to do it 6 days a week without worrying that I'm not going to be able to get my spot, get my pitch. So I think it's actually, if you want to do it for a living, and you're living in London, it's something you should really try and get on. You should try and get your licence because it's by far easier to earn a living.
With a busking licence, street musicians have a good pitch to perform on the underground. Musicians protect themselves and settle down to play music and entertain tube users. But the others who cannot get a busking licence from London Underground don't know whether they will be safe whilst performing.
We can't give everybody a licence. If we did, we'd have thousands and thousands and thousands of musicians. You know, it's got to be selective. You can't assure safety of customers if anybody was to turn up and play their music. You know, the whole point, one of the big things around the busking scheme is that they're checked to make sure that they're eligible and permitted to work in the United Kingdom. We make sure that they pass the relevant security checks, whether they're of the right standard. You know, if we wouldn't want to put our customers in any harm's way or danger by inviting anybody to turn up and play. It ensures quality. You know, we want our customers to enjoy good quality and diverse music. We want the buskers to perform in a safe environment. You know, it's not necessarily safe to stand in the street and perform to anybody walking past. A busking pitch in the street doesn't have any of those. It's just somebody standing in the street with a guitar. They're subjected to crime, they're subjected to their own personal safety being put at risk.
In contrast to London, Birmingham, the second largest city in the UK, requires a busking licence which is more accessible than that of London, where street musicians have to undergo hard competition with others for a pitch on the underground.
We laugh and laugh and we would, my word is good. Hey Delilah, I've got so much left to say. Every simple song I wrote for you would take your breath away. I'd write them all. Even more in love with me you would fall. We'd have it all.
We operate a voluntary code of conduct. So we ask street entertainers to adhere to what we think are good management rules, to make sure that what they do in the public spaces is done safely, is done without offending anyone, and is done mainly to entertain people. So it's a voluntary code of conduct. At the start of a year, in January, February, March, we don't get many, but as soon as a nice weather comes along, or spring, so March, April, then onwards we get at least 10 applications every month. So over a space of the summer period, about 6 months, we could get 60, maybe 70 applications every year, and that's new applications, so people who aren't on our approved list of entertainers. Do an audition. It's not quite like X Factor, but we do an audition and we go out and we listen to the busker performing out on the street. And what we observe is how confident they are, what kind of music they play, and most importantly, we step back and I become a member of the public, and I observe how other members of the public are reacting.
The Bullring is not on the list, although it is the most famous shopping centre in Birmingham, and it could be the best place for busking.
Thousands and thousands of people come through here every day, and they probably never even notice these metal pillars. But what these designate what is public road in front and private space owned by the Bullring Company behind it. And anything that goes on in that space goes on with their permission. And you can see the sign on the pillar there that says this is not a public right of way. And that allows them to control everything, whether it's a demonstration, whether it's music being played, whether it's people selling things within that private space, which looks exactly the same as public space.
Dr. Crisart said there was no unspoken law that street musicians are limited to the private space of the Bullring.
It is not a free area in the way that it once was, and that has all sorts of implications for policing as well as for busking and for entertaining and movement of people.
In fact, public spaces are now influenced by large companies within the area. This may mean that street musicians no longer have the option to choose the best pitches in these public spaces. Sitting down at a corner in the Chinatown area of Birmingham, Trevor Staunton often plays guitar in that spot, although he doesn't have a licence.
You're supposed to have a busker's licence, but then they tell you where to go, on New Street or down there, and I don't like them places. I like to be here.
they can come at any time and remove you out of this place?
They can, but they don't. They have different things to do. It's like security man chasing shoplifter.
You scared about that? You scared about
Not at all, not at all. They just say go away, and I say okay. They might run your name. They might check up to see if you're wanted for anything. If you're not wanted for anything, they just say, well, you've got to go. Or okay, you can stay. He says, I'm only doing my job. Personally, I like your music, but it's the council. They say we have to stop you, move you on. And I say, well, that's okay. You're only doing your job, I'm only doing my job. I go somewhere else. And see, if I go on a different policeman's patch, it's different. For example, I'm going to the station. When we get there, you will see the colours in the pavement, the security men and the cameras there. They tell me you cannot play there, but you can play there because it's out of our area. Same here. The bullring finishes here. This is not boring, this is just empty bit. I go play over there by the Arcadian Square. They say, oh, it belongs to the Arcadian Centre. You have to move outside.
The consent form for you to sign.
Yes, we know that.
Okay, fine.
While he's playing guitar, two strangers appear, and they have an argument, calling him a beggar with no permission to perform there.
Because what the point is you can accuse him of saying...
He's looking for homeless people. Supposed to get permission, but police will only come and move you on. So I told him either go away or go report us to the police, because that'd be very good for the film. The police come along, they say, come on, you got to go out, and say, we say, okay, let's go, and we'll go somewhere else.
Sometimes Trevor moves to New Street Station to play music, even though this area is not on the list that Mahendra Shahan, Business and Operations Manager of Birmingham City Centre, mentioned that buskers are allowed to perform.
Policemen come from out of town, extra police. Oh, they say, oh, what's your name? Fill out a yellow ticket. Do you have a license? No, then go. Oh, we'll arrest you. And I say to them, well, that's okay, you'll arrest me. I will get a free meal in the police cell. And then you let me go.
Busking licensing and being limited by private space are just the first challenges that street musicians need to overcome. They still have to face other problems.
I mean, we're in Birmingham, so there's always going to be the odd crazy. Like, there's this one woman came up to me and she was sort of swearing at me. She said, "This is my begging slot," and I was like, "Well, they don't actually exist, so it wasn't." And then then she's heard me perform and she changed her mind. She liked me, but she kept on switching between liking me and disliking me. And then after about an hour of that, and I'm sure a lot of people gave me money just for putting up with it, to be honest. She went across the street, just there, put her hat on the floor and started singing. And after about 20 minutes, she came and said, "Your amp's too loud. You need to shut it down so people can hear me." I was like, oh gosh.
Like, it rains on a Saturday afternoon. For a professional street performer, that's quite an expensive event. And you can get upset about it the first Saturday it rains, or the second or the third. But the 20th Saturday it rains on you, you have to make a choice. Should you get upset or not? And you kind of have to make a decision where, I guess it's part of the game. It happens.
That's the conditions never perfect for busking. I found that I'm better off going out in the winter time, the Christmas time, singing Christmas songs. I might get cold. I get some gloves and snip off the fingers, and I could do half an hour, maybe an hour there, and then I had to go into the men's toilets on a hand dryer and get warm and everything, and come out and do some more work. That's okay, even with the snow and the ice. But I found with the heat and the sunshine.
According to a 1983 case of UK law, busking provides value for money to passers-by. Therefore, buskers cannot legitimately be charged with begging. Is busking business or pleasure?
Now I use busking as, something to just complete my bills.
It's not a full-time job, it's just that it's a way I can be independent to look after my sick mothers.
I sing for my supper. Where the beggars, they beg for their drugs all day long. They get enough money for drugs, they go get some drugs. Drugs all gone, come back, get some more. Helps me to survive on a day-to-day.
He just makes a little money every day from busking, but Trevor is happy so he can buy himself a drink, meet some nice people on the street and play music. Those are enough. Busking is not only for making a living, but it also is a great way to communicate to young people. Being thirsty, having no money and working hard in the street to get a penny is what David Duritz endured as he travelled to 26 countries to busk as a violinist many years ago. In 2007, David Duritz completed a round-the-world busking trip to raise money for the charity musicality.org.
When I was approaching my 50th birthday, as a student I'd done busking and I'd sort of paid for holidays doing that, and gone around Europe. I thought, well, actually, you know, that would be a great opportunity to raise some money for a charity involved in music education. I looked around and tried to find a charity which was specifically geared to helping create new music projects. And we discovered actually there wasn't one. That's how Musicality started.
Their mission is to support communal music making for disadvantaged boys and girls in developing countries like Ghana, Thailand and India.
Music, it helps you to forget the problems behind, you know?
You can speak out, yeah.
Once you light that spark, it can really be the start of those kids going on to do something amazing with their lives.
Is a licence essential to buskers? How do we break down the limits of private spaces? These are open questions to the author policy of London and Birmingham. There are still many challenges that street musicians need to deal with whilst performing outdoors. Although it's not a steady job for them, it can be a stepping stone on the journey to change their lives, make city life feel better and more interesting in many ways. That street musicians are facing every day in order to make a living. London is one of the most multicultural cities in the world, with 8 million people. According to the Transport of London, there are 3.5 million tubes. It's about some of the challenges that street musicians are facing in this country, particularly acquiring busking licences and the limited amount of private space in London and Birmingham. This year, a 2-minute clip on YouTube showed a Spanish guitarist ordering a disabled busker who was not from the Bath area to turn the sound down, before threatening to ram his microphone down his throat. Police are continuing to investigate this incident. Without permits, buskers performing will be moved by the police. 2 buskers had to stop playing music next to Camden Town Station as they didn't have a licence for busking from the council. These are the problems passengers every year. This is a very huge market for street musicians to do their business on the underground. Since 2003, buskers are allowed to perform legally there. Each year, tube passengers are treated to more than 100,000 hours of live music performed by licensed buskers. Across the UK, street musicians or buskers are playing music everywhere to entertain people, in the street and on the underground, in both good or bad weather. They are making a living off their songs, and it is not an easy job to earn money from passers-by. This video